Hello and welcome to the Red Card Podcast. How are you guys doing?
Oh man,
I'm okay.
One of us is doing all right.
Seem okay.
We don't normally do post-game pods, and this is the one we choose to do. But hey, if we're gonna have a game like we did today, we at least have might as well have a guest like we do today. So, welcome back, Lee Dixon, to the pod. I like the name, just the Lee. It's like Lee-ino kind of. There's no need for the Dixon on there.
Absolutely. I wanted to get rid of Dixon on my back for years, and they wouldn't let me. So now I've got it.
Finally, a podcaster named Lee who just who everybody can come together and respect. So it's been about 10 months since we last had you on. So much has changed. Between the four of us, we have 8 total knees, but you've got the newest one. How's that going for you so far?
It's going good. I'm what am I doing today? 10? Am I 10 weeks or 9 weeks? I'm either 9 or 10 weeks today post-op. So doing well. Went in the swimming pool today for the first time. My physio's quite strict, so went in the pool. Feels good. Doing quite a lot of static biking, a lot of strength work, thousands of squats and leg raises and all sorts. So. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, it's the best thing I ever did. If it doesn't get any better than today, it's already 10 times better than it was before I had the op. So, and I've still got, the rehab's probably about 9 months to a year, and I'm only 10 weeks in. So, I'm very pleased with it. I had a good surgery.
A lot of my clients have had joint replacements, and they just rant and rave about them. And I had a mouth addition. It wasn't necessarily a replacement, but so that I could eat more. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but our podcast has doubled in size. We've added an entire Owen, and I've doubled in size. So we went from 2 people to 4, basically, equivalent of 4 at this point. So before we get to, for lack of a better words, the shit show that just occurred, let's catch up with you, Lee, on a couple of things. So first, about 6 months ago, I tried to watch the Ted Lasso series on Apple TV. You heard of the show?
Yeah.
And there's a scene in the first few episodes where there's a game against this fictional Richmond AFC and Crystal Palace, and they show the announcer's gantry. Oh, and I said gantry.
Yeah.
And look who's there. It's Arlo White. And who's Chris Powell. Did they not ask you? Did you? Was it not? Did it not work with your schedule? Because where were you? I stopped watching the program in protest.
Well, but basically, I'd like to make a really good excuse and say, they asked me, and my schedule was so busy, and I just couldn't fit it in. But didn't get asked. I was absolutely gutted because, obviously, Arlo sort of said he might be in it, and we kind of, I think he mentioned it to the producers. Oh, are we, and they said, oh, well, and then I don't know where Chris Powell popped up from, but he just all of a sudden it was like, how did that happen? And it just seemed like it would be a normal thing to have either me or Arlo or me and Graham, based on the fact that everybody knows we're together. And
I thought it was a credibility issue. You didn't want your football credibility to be damaged by goofy Ted Lasso.
I properly want to be an actor. I'm definitely up for acting. So
you were great in that film. 89. You were really, really good in that one. I like that one.
I was acting a lot in that.
I'm disappointed we don't have a scarf today from you.
I've got one now.
There's always one at arm's length. I think it's a rule that Lee Dixon has to have a scarf at arm's length.
I'll use this one. Let me use this one. I'll use this one as a scarf. Look.
Oh, I rather like that shirt. Michael Thomas wore his jersey while he was on the podcast. Oh, look at that.
Right. Well, if he's wearing his, I'm wearing mine.
There's our next Gooners versus podcast giveaway. By the way, is that shirt? We haven't asked Lee, but we just kind of asked Lee. So while Lee's getting up and changing, when we had him on last March, it was brilliant. We really kind of went through his career, shared some stories of his arrival at the club, the contract showdown at the
and mine's all fully signed as well. But the best bit about this shirt, is not the signatures, not the fact that it's the one I wore on the night. It's this bit. Hang on. Is it that
it fits?
No, it's still got mud on it.
Mud from
Anfield mud. I never watched it. So.
It is so generous of you to donate that to Gooners versus Cancer to give away next year.
What I find even more impressive is that you still fit into it. So that's a credit to you, Lee, and your regimented gym work.
There is a reason that my video screen cuts off right here on this shirt because, yeah. So as I was mentioning, our last podcast with Lee was all about Lee and all about your history, the showdown with George Graham 33 years ago last week on Contract Talks, the 619, not 618 appearances. So we don't want to be redundant. We talked about Ginola and all that. So we're gonna focus a little bit more today on some new stuff, obviously on the game today, and see if we have some time to fit in some questions from the users. But if you want to check out the last time we had Lee on, it was episode 4.38 on our YouTube page or iTunes. So one of the things that's changed since we last had you, and my son reminds me of this regularly because he spends like half of his life on Xbox playing FIFA, is that you and Martin have pulled the ultimate power play. You just said Smudge, or no, you and Derek, sorry. Derek, who we had on the pod about 6 months ago, and he denies that. He said it was all you. He said you pushed those guys out of the way, and that was that. Now they're like homeless and penniless.
I'd like to think that I had some sort of pull and persuasion in anything that I do, but very rarely in any aspects of my life have I got any sort of say in anything I do, and that includes at home as well. So. But no, it just happened. It was a surprise to me. We were just getting on with our job, and I presumed that they would be there forever, like they have been. I think they've been doing it about 8 or 9, 10 years or something. We've just done year 3, so it changes all the time. The direction of the game, might change again next year. We don't know. We kind of sign yearly contracts, and we don't know whether we're going to be working next year on it or not. And it's all the powers that be sitting in a big office somewhere who make those decisions. So it didn't really affect us at all work wise. We have our set amount of work we had to do, and then I don't really know how it works, how they get paid, because I don't play the game.
Right.
I kind of the only feedback I get is from my is from relatives and friends.
Whereas I know Derek just sits at home and plays the game 24/7. He's constantly packing.
Do you know what he does? Yeah. He plays it with the sound down and commentates over it again.
So I just picture that. I just want to know. I want to think that there was some sort of joust or battle or something like that. But it does kind of sound like it was just we're going in a different direction.
I can make some up if you want. I'll think of some juicy story to make up, and I'll put it on Twitter.
When we get the fourth piece of the quadrangle on, we've had all 3 of you on except for Martin. So when we get Martin on, we'll probably find out the true thing. So I was going to mention the fact that we've actually gone 2 months without a foul throw from Hector Bellerin yet, and I know that you had some opinions on that. But you know what? I think we're going to need that time to talk about today's games because there was a lot of foul occurrences that happened. Did you see James Rodriguez did one on at the weekend? No, and that would be an interesting 2-game pay doc.
Absolutely.
Considering what he's making, but
I mean, he shouldn't be taking throw-ins anyway. He's a creative midfield player. What's he doing off the pitch? Picking the ball up. So
the end result of what you said on Handbrake Off was that 2 weeks' wages the first time, 5 weeks' wages the second time. Andy's on like 12 weeks of consecutive no wages on the podcast, and he still hasn't listened to anything I say. So last thing before we pass it over to Owen to talk about this diabolical game, we owe you a debt of gratitude for real for your participation with Gooners versus Cancer. I mean, it's grown every year due to adding people who are legends of the club and the club itself, and people close to the club like Amy Lawrence, who we owe a lot of thanks to, Alan Smith, yourself for signing shirts and helping us auction them off. I mean, the one of the shirts went to Jeffrey Summer along with a nice video message that you did for him in the raffle. A second shirt went on to a certain somebody who took it upon himself to raise a bunch of money for us in Northern Ireland. So is it back framed yet? It's not behind you, Owen.
It's not. I'm getting it tomorrow, and it's funny, Lee. First of all, I really appreciate you taking the time to sign that shirt, and it was great to get it through the door. But it's in the framing shop at the minute, and my missus was telling me, well, you can't be just filling a room with Arsenal stuff, because I've recently got a huge Thierry Henry canvas painted. And I says that is now my most treasured possession, that I would, if we went broke in the morning, I would sell her and the child before I would sell that shirt. I'd be clinging
it sounded like you said it sounded like you said it's a tragic possession. I'm like, why is it tragic?
No, tragic.
Well, I tell you a tiny little story about me sending those stuff. I said to Amy, look, send the book and I'll send them over. And then obviously with the COVID thing and the, not being allowed to go out, but essential stuff. I was speaking to Dave Seaman, and I'm 56 years of age, and he told me something that I never knew before about the post office. And I said, I've got to take these parcels. I don't know when. And he went, well, just pay the 72p and they come and pick them up from your house. And I said, what? And he said, if you go online, you can go online and you can pay for the postage. You put them on scales and you weigh the parcel. You wrap it up. You print your label. You stick it on. You stick it on your doorstep. Postman comes, 72p, picks them up. I was like, genius. So bear with me. So by the side of my desk is this. Nice. And this. So I am now an official post package sender all around the world. So thanks, Dave Seaman, for introducing me to that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and no good deed goes unpunished. I think we're going to need to wrap him into this process next season.
Absolutely,
we need goalkeeper representation. Imagine you start up a charity and you love Arsenal with all of your soul, and not only do you get Lee Dixon and Alan Smith to sign stuff to help raise funds, but they're like turning into amateur postmen on your behalf to help you. Because look, if I could walk everything over, get it all done myself, put in all the work, I would, and we try as much as we can. But at some point, we need the help of people like Amy Lawrence, and we need the actual players like yourself to do things and put in the effort. And I feel awful asking you to do that because you're already being generous enough with your actions. But
I've got a new skill. I want to thank you. I've got a new skill.
I was about to say, shouldn't we be getting a thank you out of this? There's a new career on the horizon for Lee.
Yeah. When FIFA kicks you to the curb, you're going to need to replace that.
Yeah. Now I've got my new knee. I can walk all the letters around the neighborhood. I can do that as well.
You gotta update your LinkedIn profile, Lee. New career.
Yeah, absolutely.
The recruiter is always thinking. Well, I can't thank you enough for that. And I think 15 minutes into this podcast, I think we have to get to the elephant in the room besides me, this Wolves game that just happened. So, Owen, I hope you can get through this without your voice breaking and tears streaming down your face.
No, I've done enough crying pre-pod as it is. But no, look, we'll try and keep it on a positive note for the little time that we can, Lee. We were discussing before the podcast that I think the thing about this that hurt the most was that's probably the best that we've played all season in that opening 20 minutes in particular. So not so much the whole match, but just that opening 20 minutes in particular. What did you make of it sort of being evident that Mikel Arteta's system was finally sort of kicking into gear and working?
Well, total control. I think I go further than the first 20 minutes. I think the first half up until the penalty, they didn't look like scoring. They had one header. We should have been probably 2 or 3-0 up. Total control of midfield. Partey turned into the opposite of what he was against United at the weekend, where he couldn't literally pass to a red shirt for the whole game. His passing was terrible at the weekend. He looked, he's not played an awful lot of football. He's been out a little bit, and I just felt a little bit sorry for him against United. Everything he tried then to start forcing the passes, and he just got worse and worse. But the exact opposite of that happened tonight. Tonight he was in control of the ball. His long passes were short. He was aided by two players in Pepe and Saka that decided that running beyond and stretching Wolves was the right thing to do. That would have been, a tactic from Arteta, is to try and stretch the team a little bit, and the ball's over the top, down the sides, and they were willing runners. So that just stretches the team and it gives more space in midfield. So it was working brilliantly well. So there'll be lots of positives he'll take out of the game, even though they lost and had 2 men sent off. But you've got.
What are you going to do? I mean, that happens, right?
Exactly. All you can do as a manager and a coach is go, right, what do I need to fix? Very difficult to be critical of David Luiz. And don't get me wrong, I'm the first normally to jump on his case. You could be critical about his positioning, about why he ended up having to chase back, which he will probably do once a game, maybe twice a game in some games, and then he won't do it for a while. Positionally, he does get himself into some flaky positions, and that was one of them. But the penalty is the penalty. It's whether he tried to get back his wrong side, he clips the lad, didn't mean it, no attempt to play the ball. It's a red card and it's a penalty. There's no argument about that. There'll be loads of people watching this and listening to this saying, well, he didn't mean to do it, and it doesn't matter. I
think there's two of them below you.
I think it's always a penalty. I just don't know that the red card, because someone sent the rules, and this is what it says: a player who commits a foul to deny a goal-scoring opportunity will no longer automatically be sent off. Football's rule-making body has confirmed. However, players committing accidental fouls that deny a goal-scoring chance will be cautioned instead, but deliberate fouls will
But with that, there was no genuine attempt to play the ball. He didn't play the ball. He played the man. Within that, whether it was accidental or not, like Lee says, there was no genuine attempt to play the ball. And to be honest, when I first viewed that incident, I actually thought that he did make a slight motion towards the player. I don't know, Lee, but even more so than like you said, the foul itself. The lack of positional awareness from supposedly our most senior player, surely after a sort of number of mistakes, and this not being the first time this happens, surely Mikel Arteta has to look at David Luiz now as almost a potential liability in a very fragile season as it is.
Well, I think I would have agreed with you a while ago. I think his players improved. He's not been making as many mistakes. When he makes a mistake, they tend to be quite big ones. He tends to be he's a bit of a chancer as a defender. He dives in, he takes positions that are a little bit unorthodox in order to, and when it comes off, he looks great because he nips in and he nicks the ball, and you think, oh, that was good. But I've always thought that he plays right on the edge of disaster. But his play has been a lot better, but he still has that in him. And the penalty's not his fault, but the position he took up before that, you might say, well, it was near the halfway line, and the ball, there's a lot of things happen. But when there's a big gap like that in a back four, it's not always easy to close that gap. If you've got men running off you, if there's a bit of a space, and I've got somebody here, somebody's got, and sometimes a run, and it was a good run as well, good ball, good pace on the ball. So. But that was it. The game was right there. That was the turning point, the change from a position of power and strength to going in at half time, deflated, lost the man, lost the lead. Managers team talk properly gone out the window, because the first thing he'd be doing.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like what changes in that dressing room over those following 15 minutes?
The first thing he would have not done when he got in there, if it had been 1-0 and David Luiz no penalty, it'd have been wow. It'd have been properly eulogising with the players, saying we did this right. All we got to do is be a bit more clinical. Saka should score the first goal in 30 seconds. He should score that. But I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that should have gone in and be 1-0 up. And then obviously the offside goal is offside, whether you like it or not. But there was other chances to be ahead. So all that positive talk, whether he wants to say that anyway, even though the penalty's gone in and the sending off, he's not going to say it straight away, because he's got to deal with that first. He's got to go, right, what are we going to do? Right, okay. So straight away the half time's completely flipped on its head, and the players now are in a completely different frame of mind. They're going, so if I'm right back, say I'm Hector Bellerin, I'm now thinking about, right, so we've just checked. He might have a preference on which centre half he plays with, and how Gabriel plays and how David Luiz plays. So already Hector Bellerin's thinking something different than he would have done if he hadn't got sent off. Left back, Cedric's doing the same thing. They're doing organising, so the whole dynamic changes, and also you lose it. You're taking a centre forward off, so the dynamic of that is changing. So one blow of the whistle flips the game right on its head, and it also, on the opposite side of that, the team talk in the other dressing room is the exact opposite of what it was going to be. Right, we're back in this, lads, and everyone's buoyant and everyone comes out flat. You saw how they started the second half. It was different. It was like, wow, they've had a bit of a G up. So I can't emphasize how much. I mean, it's quite obvious to say how much that changed the game, but not only changed the game, but changed everybody's perception about what's going to happen in the next. All you lot, I'd say you lot, us lot, we're all thinking the same. We're all going, can't believe that was total domination. Now what's going to happen? Oh, we're going to go, and then there's a load of negative things come in, and you'll know that the more negative energy about the place, bad things happen.
And I'm just interested to hear your point of view on this, because you were mentioning there. I know we're obviously covering Arsenal here, but if we can just jump over to a Wolves perspective here. Excuse me. There was a lot made of it before the game that Nuno had held a team meeting before this match to let the players sort of vent their frustrations at each other openly. And we know that Mikel Arteta did something similar a few months back. And then you mentioned there obviously the spirits within their dressing room at halftime. How do you feel that those sort of team meetings to vent the frustration tend to go? Do you tend that they tend to be like quite a last ditch effort and desperation, or do you think that they're actually a positive step that the club can take to sort of rectify the performance frustration held by the players?
Well, it depends on the individual team itself. It used to go off all the time in our dressing room, so there wasn't necessarily a need for a big meeting because things had got so bad. It was policed as it went along, so it very rarely got to a boiling point.
Was that the case from start to finish? Because you played in two very different teams when you joined the club versus when you had your last few years in the club.
Yeah, because the early years, the 89s and 90s and 91s, if anything was going wrong, we sat there like little schoolboys and took an absolute pasting from George. It wasn't. We didn't all stand up and start going, "You're not doing this." You learn about. That's why we're at our peak was probably when Arsene came and took over at 96. At that point, that dressing room ran itself, and we didn't need any help from Arsene Wenger. We didn't need him to say, "Oh, we're having a crisis meeting." He wouldn't know how to hold a crisis meeting. Arsene, it was like, "We'll take care of this, boss. It's okay. We got this." Right, Wiltord, take them headphones off, put them headphones on the floor. You're in a team meeting, listen. And he pretended he couldn't speak English, which he could, but he just spoke in French all the time. And Robert, he was. Sylvain used to be, him and Robert Perez were late for training virtually every single day. And Arsene did not know how to deal with it, because he used to come in and he used to look at his watch and they'd come strolling in, and it was 10 o'clock for a 10:30 start. And they'd come strolling in at 20 past 10. All the lads are ready to go in their kit. And these two would walk in with their little, wash bags, and they'd be like, "Bonjour." And we'd all like, "Bonjour, get your effing kit on now and get out there." And Arsene used to come and he goes, "Oh, what is the time? What is the time?" And he wouldn't know how to deal with it. So we used to say to him, "Right, listen, come on, make it a bit more prompt." And most of the time they didn't listen, but eventually they started.
He didn't follow the George Graham school of docking wages.
No, he wasn't. He once had a go at Sylvain for, I think it was being late, and we're in a team meeting and he had his headphones on in the team meeting, and he came and he goes, "It's not acceptable that you keep being late." And Sylvain was like that. what was it? Take your headphones off. Told again, and then he says, "I'm going to fine you £5,000," and all the lads went, "Whoa!" And Sylvan was just sitting there like that, going. And then, because it didn't really make any effect, Arsene
has children, right? I mean, like, do they just run wild around the house? Like, I mean,
they must do. They must do. But because it didn't really hit him that hard, Arsene raised it to £10,000. No, 10,000. We were like, yeah.
Lee, can I ask you something about this match? So, as a player, you walk off the pitch. You've lost 2-1, right? You play with 9 men. Ultimately, we played 45 minutes of really good football. Wolves win 2-1 off of a wonder goal, right? Yeah. No keeper saving that across the world.
Yeah.
Are there some positives you take away from this? Do you feel hard done by as a player, but you think to yourself, like, this is just a bad luck match?
So if I'm in that dressing room after the game, I'm saying, I'm almost writing that off and saying, right, it's done. Forget about that. You know, we're on a good run, and we up until half time we were on a good run, and then situation arose out of our control, and we've lost the game. Forget about it. Do you almost just scrub it out of the program notes and like rub it out like that and just go, didn't happen, forget about it? Because if you let the players will then go home, and you'll be sitting at home and you'll be going, David Luiz will be sitting at home thinking about that. Leno will be sitting at home going, what the heck was I doing? You know, why did I all that lot? And they will do. But if you can, as a team, if you can sort of write it off and say, okay, that's where the manager comes in. I'm pretty sure he will come into that dressing room afterwards and say, well played, first half, brilliant. You know, it's an accident. It's not really a sending off, or whatever he says to the players, whatever he believes. And then you get on with it. There's time and a place for a showdown of pulling players out. But how can you pull any of those players out? Yeah, you can't. The only one thing I would say at the end of the game, in the last 10 minutes, I was like, you know, just throw Aubameyang up. Why is he? You know, got 8 men behind the ball. Just
it was 2 banks of 4, basically.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, I was thinking, why are we trying to play it? Just boot it forward. Let's just see if we can do something.
Well, but personally, I would have put Aubameyang and Saka up front and said, just go and stay up there, and just let them not. Because we used to do, you know, in training every single day. George used to have the back 4 and the goalkeeper. And then the rest of the team used to play, and 1 midfield player. So there was 6 of us, goalie, 4 and a 1. Normally, Paul Davis would be the one who has to. And then he'd get the rest of the team to play against us. And they hardly ever scored. It's really difficult to score against 5 defenders when they're all around the box, because you don't let them in the box. They end up shooting from long range. So if you just say, look, we've got 8 men, right, 2 of them go up there, and you 5 have got to keep them out and the goalie. Because if you get beat 4-1, it doesn't matter. We've got no chance of getting back into that game with 10 minutes to go because we had 8 players on the edge of the box. So it's
does it matter potentially a little bit psychologically, though? I mean, because to me, look, you never play for a 2-1 loss, even when it's already 2-1. But to me, the way they finished that game off with 9 men, the way that they held Wolves, and I think can look at the entire game now as being, you know, 3 different segments. One was unlucky. The other 2 were pretty darn good. I come out of that with the confidence of saying, you know what, other than Leno, we've got our optimal 11 available for Saturday against Villa, and I'm feeling strong. So if you go for it too much and you end up leaking goals and losing by a cricket score,
don't care.
Does that, you don't care? I mean, that's what I'm asking, because I just get like that would be more demoralizing.
I get beat 10-1 if I've got a chance of getting a 2-2. Absolutely, 100%.
I mean, it makes sense. I just don't know how the mind of.
But you got to think, like, again, like the mentality, as Lee said, of the match is they've got to be walking away from this thinking it was only 2-1. We had 9 men. A lot of luck went against us. Dust it off, and you go into training tomorrow, and you look at the video, and you know that Leno handball. I've been there a ton as a keeper where it bounces, and you're just like, fuck. It just
You should be there. He shouldn't, but you know.
No, but it happens, right? He comes out and the ball just bounces, and you're like, "Well, I'm done." Like he didn't even look back. He was just like, "I already knew." And he did. That's what I loved about the video.
He was in the dressing room before he committed the foul.
He knew.
But do you see with that there, Lee? No, obviously you can touch on Bird Leno's red card, but it's a pretty straightforward one. I think it was just a moment of madness for him, but. Something that I was thinking there, and you can sort of blend these two questions together as one, is what did you make of the team's response? And do you think that this Arsenal team, in comparison to maybe years past, the later years of Arsene Wenger's tenure and Unai Emery's tenure, do you think that there's sort of a newfound resilience in this side under Mikel Arteta, whereas maybe in years prior they maybe would have buckled in that situation?
Yeah, there's lots of pluses over the last period of play. I think we're seeing, he talks about the spirit a lot. I'm not in the dressing room, so I don't know. I get a feeling with the characters that are on the pitch that the dressing room is getting better, which is good. You've got the likes.
I wonder how that happened.
Don't worry, we'll cover that.
We've got the likes of Rob Holding, who seems a really good character. We've got now Tierney, who trains in his boxer shorts in the freezing snow. We've got Hector Bellerin, who I think is a good character in the dressing room. I think we've got Partey looks like he's a strong character as well. So, and Xhaka's coming. God, here we go. Me saying good things about Xhaka. Who thought you'd ever hear this? He's turning into a really useful player with Partey. I think their partnership could be something that could mould into something. I'm not pinning any hopes on it because I know Xhaka's let me down a million times, but I'm giving him some, as Roy Keane would say, I'm giving him some toffee. That means I'm being nice to him. So I'm going to give Xhaka a bit of toffee. And I don't know what that bell means, but it must mean something good.
It means you've used an Englishism.
Yeah, it's sort of Englishism that we would never say here in the States. Like,
okay. So can I ask you?
So you're saying Xhaka is in the ascendancy then?
Well,
on the pitch next to Partey.
Yeah, he's
when it's raining.
I like what he's doing with positionally. I like sometimes I like it, because he basically, when we're building the play up, he basically goes and stands left back, and he lets whoever's playing left back just Tierney go, and he sits in that left back area and gets the ball off the centre halves and hits those big, which is great because it frees up the left side of the pitch a little bit. It was different than what goes on the right hand side, but the thing is, now and again, and it was worried me a little bit against United with the way they break, that sometimes he gets caught when they break on us as a left back. And I know he's played there before, but positionally he's terrible sometimes in that position, and his decision making is terrible about when to tackle and when not to tackle at times. So but going forward with the ball, I like that side of his game. I think he frees up Partey to be a bit more on the ball in the middle, and as we saw tonight, hit those passes. He hit some great passes tonight.
Yeah. I smelled a second red card coming after that goal to equalize or to go ahead. It just felt in the air like there was a second red card coming, and I would have never thought it would have been Leno. I thought Xhaka all day long was going to get reputationally, and because when he took that yellow early in the second half, he seemed to be on tilt a little bit, but he held it in, I guess. But
he's like a modern day, like almost like a quarterback, in that role. He really drops deep and pings them balls over the top. It's a bit of a weird one, but there's an argument that's been going on Twitter. I'm not sure how active you are on there, how much attention you pay to it, but
really?
it's over probably two sort of divisive characters that play in your position. And that's at right back, and it's really sort of the Hector Bellerin and Cedric argument that when we have this, our full team fit, our strongest 11 going out, who do you think naturally really suits Arteta's system more so to really take that right back slot. Put it like this: if you were Arteta and you were sitting there and you had to pick a team, which one out of them two would you pick to play that system?
That's a good question.
Lovely. I love hearing Lee talk about Hector. This is not the first time, so we'll see. We'll see how things have evolved if they have.
I quite like what I've seen with Cedric when he's played at left back more than right back. Actually, I think that's probably helped with what I mentioned about Xhaka, where his position, because he doesn't have that on the right. No one goes into that right back position like Xhaka goes into that left back area. So I think it frees up the left back. I think that suits Cedric. I don't think either of them are as good as defensively as perhaps fullbacks in the past, maybe Nigel Winterburn or Ashley Cole or other right backs I could mention defensively. So the question, who would I pick? I'd probably go with, at the moment, I'm seeing some signs with Hector that he seems to be improving. I don't know whether he's getting any more coaching or from positionally from Mikel. I think it looks like Mikel is liking, obviously with Tierney's out, so it's difficult to know if Tierney comes back, whether he pushes Cedric over and leaves Hector out. I'd probably go with Hector, but it would be touch and go, and I'd go with Hector because I've always wanted him to go on and be the fullback that he should have been, and he's not there yet. And it's taken him a long time to get there. So he's on a sticky wicket. If he doesn't, get to that place, then
I think defensively he's been much improved lately.
He has.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some.
Yeah, it helps because the whole defense is I think Rob Holding alongside him is a big plus for him. If you've got as a fullback, if you've got a centre half, you can kind of not have to look over your shoulder all the time and see where he is. Rob's positioning is pretty good, so it frees up your mind as a fullback slightly on the, because you're slightly ahead of your centre back. If you haven't got to keep looking where he is, because you almost sense where he is. I knew exactly where Martin was. You could put the ball on the pitch and go, right, the ball's there, where's Martin? And I'd go, well, I should be there and he should be 5 yards behind me and 20 yards inside me, and I'd turn around and he'd be there, because he knew where in relation. That was all what George did, was the relationship between the four of us. So I think with Rob being there, and I'm a big fan of Rob's, I think that settled Hector down a little bit defensively, and he seems to have him on a piece of string, which is what he should have, and pull him around and then, right, we're over here now, and then would. So yeah, I think I'll probably go with Hector.
And Rob's got that kind of on either side, I think, with his center back partner as well as his right back, which is the beauty of Rob. Rob Holding seems to have that piece of string on both sides with his left center back and his right back, which is an understated element of what he brings to the back four.
Right, that's why it's called a back four. There's four of them.
Well, I was going to ask.
We don't always see it play out like that.
No, exactly. I wasn't being funny with you. I was saying, it should be a four, not like that.
Yeah.
That gap can sometimes get grown by the fact he's not in contact with his left centre back.
On the Holding piece, there's a lot of, again, if you Twitter, like, hey, Arsenal need to bring in another centre back this summer. What am I missing here? Holding has been, like, we all joked about it in a group. He's the most consistent defender we've had all season. I don't think he's actually done anything wrong, which has led to a out and out goal. And if anything, he's holding a lot of players from starting. I think he's been one of our best players the entire season. And I don't know if it's because he's been with us for so long, or maybe it's because he didn't cost whatever the money, but he's been.
Maybe it's because he didn't cost £55 million.
Yeah.
Who's saying that?
A lot of supporters are just saying we need to bring in another centre back to partner with Gabriel, and I'm thinking, why? We've got Holding. He's been just brilliant.
Andy's talking about people on Twitter a lot for someone who never goes on Twitter.
Also, I
have to go on to make sure I don't have to delete your tweets from our account.
I'll accept that.
See what
you were about to say something, Lee.
Oh, sorry. Go on ahead, Lee.
No, I was going to say you just got to be careful who people are, because when people say I'm doing it now, when people say, oh, they're saying this about, who are they? Who are the people? The people I always my judge
sources say.
Sources. My judge on and I said this throughout my career, and it's different perhaps when you're a player, but my judge was, am I on the team sheet? And I'll go, I'm on the team sheet. So those people, and they saying this about me when I was playing, I used to go, it's different now because you got social media and it's kind of, but I used to go, the only person, and my dad got upset about this, because they're the only person that matters about how I'm playing is the bloke who picks the team. That is it. Doesn't matter what my teammates think, doesn't matter what anybody thinks. Am I number 2 on that team sheet when it gets pegged up with a bit of chewing gum on the board, which it used to go up like, I used to go like that. And then you look at it and you go, oh, I'm playing tomorrow. Brilliant. That's all I used to matter. And I think with Rob, he's a bit old school as well. He'll probably feel the same thing. He's on the team sheet every week, and he absolutely should be, because he's developed, after and let's not forget, he had a bad injury. And to come back from that is is an effort in itself, to get back to playing at the level he's playing at, in a defense that was leaking goals, and now all of a sudden we're in a position where we look solid. So I think he's number 1 on the team sheet at the moment.
Do you think anything besides injuries, as well as what, based on what Sarab's question is on the screen, do you think what do you think's happened to Hector's pace? He seems slow compared to his early days. He's had an ankle and a knee. I mean, is it anything beyond that, you think?
I don't think so. People are going on about injuries play a massive part in players' careers, and Jack Wilshere, perfect example of that. A prestigious talent at a really young age, played a lot of football, men's football, when he was young, and got a lot of injuries on his ankles, and he's never recovered. So everybody who had a go at Jack Wilshere, and I'd be one of them who would be critical of him for what I'm seeing, but in the back of my mind, I always had the caveat of going, his ankles are gone. You're going to see that with Harry Kane now. He's at 2 ankles again. He's always going to have, ankles don't get any better. It's the most sensitive joint in the body, and if you've got bad ankles, you're in a lot of trouble. So I think with Hector, he was so quick and so blisteringly sharp off the mark that any reduction in that, people go, well, he's got, people are going on about his being a vegan, and he needs to get some protein in, and all that rubbish. Because it is rubbish. He's probably the fitter now than he, bodily wise, the fittest he's ever been. It's got nothing to do with that. It's about the injuries he's had. He's a little bit older, might be a bit more fearful as well. Sometimes you hold your pace back a little bit. When he was first got in the side, and he was just like, he didn't care whether he was out of position or not. He was like, oh, I'm just going to run back and get fit, and now all of a sudden his pace has dropped a little bit. You start not quite going for that, because you think, oh, you know what, I might not get back. So, and that probably coincides with him being defensively a little bit better, because he's not out of position as much, and he's got a partner next to him. Yeah. All of a sudden his game's steadied down a little bit, and you're not seeing the big mistakes from him and out of position, because he's not quite stretching himself in those positions. So that might be why he looks a little bit more solid.
Yeah, I have mentioned a couple of times on this podcast about the thing that somebody had up on Facebook. I think it was an article or a picture collage or something, and it was if football Twitter existed in the 90s, and it was showing the nonsense that people would be saying about obviously fantastic players going through dips of form and stuff. And
why do we sign that bloke for 400,000 from Stoke when we could have gotten fancy right back from Marseille or something like that?
All our dips in form were due to the amount of alcohol we were drinking.
See, you had a genuine excuse. Not this knee injury crap that we hear about nowadays.
It's social media's fault now instead of at least alcohol. I mean, is it's understandable. I mean, when I'm off form, it's usually because of that. So I'm an old-fashioned guy, still wearing an old shirt that I can't fit.
We have a nickname for Mike in a group. It's called Merlot Mike, because if he comes in with like a weird text, you immediately know he's had a bottle or two of Merlot.
I do not drink Merlot. It's Cabernet, but Cabernet Mike does not work quite as well. So
it doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't. So
I just have a few wee things in terms of some of the transfer business we've done, Lee, just before we wrap up. I'll throw these two questions into one because I don't want to hold you back too much on time. Obviously, the mass exodus that we've seen from the club this year, Mesut Ozil, Ziyech Kolasinac, Shkodran Mustafi, Socrates, just to name a few. All these players moving out, but not only that, there seemed to be, I'm not sure what your thoughts on this are, and I don't want to overstep the mark and trying to get you to talk about players too much, but especially with those three, Kolasinac, Ozil and Mustafi, really, I'd say the true colours shone through mostly once Mesut Ozil had departed, and two players in Mustafi and Kolasinac, which were still under employment by the club, their farewell messages on social media almost had sly digs within them. So how important is it not only just to move on these players numerically for the squad, but for the damage that it can do inside the dressing room?
Yeah, it's huge. Mesut's been there a long time, not playing any football. That doesn't bode well for anybody, the player, the club, the team, the training sessions. I'm sure he was fine with the lads when he was training with them, but ultimately it's not a good situation to have. And the other two that you mentioned, likewise, if they're not in the team, it becomes a toxic situation, or it could lead to that. So I think Mikel's been really prudent in moving those players on for that reason, but also to get them off the wage bill, to free up space in the dressing room. I know it sounds stupid, but you can't have too many people in the dressing room. You've got to clear some pegs off and get some new coats in there. And so there's an opportunity for that. A couple of the young lads have gone out as well, which he thinks good, in order to get more football. I think that'll only benefit them. And you might say, well, did we need them to? I think it's at the stage. The team's at the stage now where you need bearing down in order to keep the quality, and then you build it up again. And we're in that process. And so there's a massive summer coming up as far as adding to those numbers now, because we'll be a bit short on numbers with the people that have just left. So I think the quality that we've seen tonight, even, just on the first half tonight, there's a lot of quality there. The biggest thing now for me is consistency. Mm-hmm. And in order to have consistency with the amount of football they're playing, you do need numbers. So it's a little bit on the edge from now to the end of the season, because if you get a couple of injuries now and they're playing every 3 days,
or a couple of red card suspensions every game.
Exactly. We're going to lose another 2 there. And then if you get another couple of injuries next 2 or 3 games, and they're playing every 3 or 4 days, you could be in a spot of bother, and you could end up going 6 games without winning because you're short of numbers. So I think Arteta's took a bit of a gamble in that respect, but the gamble's worth it because you're getting rid of some I don't like the word deadwood, but some players who are not going to feature and are not. It's not good to have them around the place. It doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do them any good either. Get them out. Go and play. Mustafi, off you go. Thank you.
You know what good you've done though. If for nothing else, you've got a new apprenticeship as a postman. You've got a new knee. All this good stuff coming out of you on the podcast. But the thing that tops it all off is that you have calmed down Drago, the Bulgarian Gooner.
With
your mustard voice.
My voice is mustard. I've just seen it now.
I have a question for Lee regarding transfers.
Is mustard the opposite of pony?
So as we go into this summer, we've cleared a lot of wages, so we've got money to spend, right? But we're also seeing the likes of I mean, Saka's got to be the first name on the team sheet, but ML Smith Rowe, and there are other younger players that are starting to come through. How do you, as an ex-professional, see us in the transfer window? Do you think we have to buy players that allow them to continue in the squad, or do we buy players to compete with them to play in that squad to push them and be better?
Well, it's an interesting. I don't know this. This is what I'm surmising, but I think Odegaard, the signing of him, he's a quality. He's no doubt he's full of ability and quality, and you don't go to Real Madrid at 16 if you're not any good. But it's interesting with Emile Smith Rowe. I honestly think if he hadn't hit the ground running like he has and been as good as he has been, I think they might have been tempted, with Ozil going as well, I think he might have been tempted to try and get somebody in permanently. Mm-hmm. And that would have cost a chunk of money. And I think what he's done, Arteta's just took the foot off the pedal on that one a little bit and gone, do you know what? This lad might be the one. So we can afford to just get someone in on loan, quality. Odegaard's coming in. And then if Smith Rowe, because you don't know, he's everybody's looking at him and going, he's the next Dennis Bergkamp. He's going to be this, he's going to be that. He's da-da-da. I've heard people say he's the next Dennis Bergkamp, which is ridiculous. To actually start labelling a 20-year-old kid with stuff like that. But he's showing all the signs of being able to carry that position and be another Saka, because there's no doubt Saka's there for good. He's already passed. He's like, that's it. He's in. He's sorted. He's going to be
one of our supporters club members posted something a month ago. Now the whole team was in a bad patch. Said Saka was the most overrated player he's ever seen. Never got stuck in. Hadn't had any assists or goals from touches inside the box. And like the entire Arsenal America supporters club ran him out of town. Like that was a bad take then, but I mean, his last month would be the best month of a footballer for Arsenal that I've seen in a long time.
And he's a great kid as well. He's got a brilliant character about him. If you didn't know him and you thought, well, what's he like? He might go off the rails. He might do this. He might do. I've never met him, but I know people who know him, and he's got all that sorted. So there's nothing holding that bad lad back. If he can just go through his career without getting injured, he's going to be a superstar. So, but I genuinely think that in the summer now we're in a position that we'll be able to be a little bit more selective, as opposed to, especially with Smith Rowe doing so well. I worry a little bit about goals at times. Aubameyang with his dip that he's had. Obviously, Lacazette stepped up a little bit. The goal thing, if we went out and bought a big striker from somewhere, I wouldn't be disappointed. But I don't know who that would be right now. In the price.
That's actually perfect, Lee, as the professional that you are. You've sort of segued perfect onto my final question. You'll be happy to know that you don't have to listen to me anymore. And it's a bit of a stupid, sort of bland question, but I'm interested to hear, if you were in Mikel Arteta and Edu's shoes and you were sort of handed the blank checkbook within the realms of possibility, what within the sort of realms of reality, what are
that's
three?
Not a blank checkbook, is it?
No. Well,
so you've contradicted yourself there.
But it's a blank KSE checkbook. There's limits, man. But three players that you would look to target specifically.
Oh God!
And this comes from all your experience playing FIFA.
Now, Lee, just know whatever you say will be taken as in the know knowledge and used across all media platforms that we are signing these players in the summer.
I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to answer that question. That's a question that needs thought. I can't think. I need to go. I'll give next time I'm on. I'll give you the answer.
Okay.
Because I need to assess the team a little bit more and then work out with your blank checkbook, not blank checkbook scenario.
There is a downside to not answering the question, and that is I have the control over the banners. So
I don't even know what that means. A blank checkbook, but within the realms of reality.
Well, so like, I think what he's saying is, you blank checkbook, but we're not going to be signing Mbappe because he's not going to come to Arsenal, right? So it's players that are realistically going to join.
Basuma, for example, at Brighton, I would say is probably quite a realistic but expensive signing. Buendia is another one, possibly. A right back alternatively, people maybe think as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm still not answering your question.
Okay. that's what you get, Owen. All right, so let's move forward for some user questions with the short amount of time we have left. First of all, I want to give a shout out and a message to you, Lee, from your mate Darren, FIFA boy Darren.
All right.
On Twitter. Couldn't make the show tonight. He's working, but I told him I'd say hello, and I guess you're having a conversation with him on his podcast.
Yeah, we did one last week. It was fun.
Yeah, seems like a really nice bloke. And one question I have for you before we go to the user questions is something I heard you say during the Manchester United game when Hector Bellerin, of all people, found himself lying down on his side. Yeah. With his tuchus facing the free kick under the wall, which is the newfangled thing, and you flat out said I would refuse to do that, which I thought was hilarious. Does it not make sense to you how that works, or like you just wouldn't do it?
No, I'd get someone else to do it.
So it isn't that you disagree with the concept.
Yeah.
That you're
the point is, here's a question for you, right? Here's a question. How many times have you seen that happen?
Right.
How many goals have you seen? Like how many? 1, 2? I can remember 2, and that's it. And every team does it now. It's like, it's so difficult to hit a ball that hard along the ground. I mean, if I jumped in a wall anyway, the ball wouldn't go under my foot because I can only jump about that high anyway. I just think it's the amount of times people do it. I just don't. No, I wouldn't do it.
As much white sparkly Merlot as I had at that moment in the game, I sent myself an email. I'm like, I got to ask him about that on Tuesday because I just thought it was funny. Yeah. So we do have some questions from Matt D'Souza. Does Lee feel that in the short and medium term, Arteta will succeed more with young players, similar to what Brendan Rodgers is doing with Leicester?
Well, it would seem like he's, we know he's willing to give the youngsters a chance. It's his first job. He's a young, inexperienced manager. He will make decisions that are wrong. He will keep young players in the team for too long because that's what happens. And he will learn by all of that. And so at the end of, or as he goes through his managerial career, he'll make mistakes and he'll start to build up. He hasn't got anything to fall back on at the moment. He can't go, I played the kids too long because I did that last year and it didn't work. You've got to look. Arsene Wenger was the king of knowing when to pull a player out before the player was tired or going to get injured. I don't know how he did it. He had like a sixth sense. He'd come up to me and he'd go, I'm leaving you out Saturday. And I go, why? And he'd go, you look tired. I go, I'm not tired. I feel great. And he'll go, you're not playing Saturday. And I'm like, and then he'd walk off. And I was like, so I'd go and knock on his door after training. And I said, you're wrong, Gaffer. I'm telling you, you're wrong. And he'd go, well, I just think that Lushney should play on Saturday because you look in training, you look a bit sluggish. And I totally disagree with him. And then he put me on the bench. And then I'd play the week after and I'd be bang back up to the, and then the difference in the feeling that week of how I felt the week before I was dropped. I was like, God, he's right, because I feel so much better now, and he's got all that to do with the youngsters, Smith Rowe, there'll be a time where he just kind of pulls him out and not just one game.
Really close, actually.
Yeah, not just one game.
It might be a little bit, it looks like
2 or 3 games and go, just sit on the bench a bit. And because on the bench, when you're out the team, if you've been in the team, on the bench, you sit there and you're like that, you're sulking. And then you start watching the game and you start going, I would be watching Bellerin if it was me. I'd be going, right, what's he doing right? What's he doing wrong? What's his position? You can learn so much sitting on the bench if you watch the game.
Would you have headphones on or no?
What's that?
Would you have headphones on while you were doing that or no?
No. I'd take them off. So sometimes it's good just to sit a lad out and go, right, watch from there a little bit. Get up, have a little warm up, because it's funny when you go down and warm up down near the corner flag and you're pretending to stretch and you're not really. You're watching the game, and you're you're along the line of the back four, and you can hear them, you can see them, and you can see them moving up, and you can go, oh, he's a little bit slow when they're moving up. And I used to say to Lauren, when I was on the bench a lot in my last season and he was playing, I'd see something in his game while I was watching, and I'd go and tell him after, and I'd say, hey, just watch it when you're just getting caught a little bit wide, when the ball's getting switched and the ball's getting played inside you. So stay a little bit narrow so they play it outside, and then you can go. And little things like that you can see on the sideline, and you can't always see when you're in the game.
We have a great question from Eric Newcomer. He's asking you, Lee, how often do you have to remind yourself to be unbiased when commenting for Arsenal?
Never. I just say what I see. So if it sounds biased, it's not because I'm biased. It's just because I'm not a very good commentator.
Well, do you feel that you get? I mean, we've talked to Alan about this. I think we may have talked about this in the last podcast. I mean, the curse of being an ex-Arsenal player who comments on Arsenal games at times, quite frequently, is the accusation of going over the other edge and being too technical. And I know that's something that you have received in the past by some people. I'm not saying that for us. I'm referring to what we were saying before, because we would never say anything about you or about Arlo White. So, but like, do you feel like you more have to kind of get out from that accusation than from being biased?
I think sometimes I'm a little bit. I can sometimes be a little bit too detailed because I care so much about Arsenal. So I would talk about them in a bit more detail as about what I think's happening and how they could fix it, and try to get into it a little bit more. I sometimes catch myself being a little bit like that, but I don't think it changes. And when I sometimes the Tottenham fans say, "Oh, Dixon's on the Tottenham game." I think I'm really fair to Tottenham, because I could have been a lot harder on them just recently. I mean, God, I've done their last two games. I could have absolutely caned them, but I was trying to be.
No pun intended.
Ring your bell. I don't know whether that's worth a bell.
I'm always happy to ring the bell. So let's. You got time for two questions? Two more questions?
Yeah. What? Yeah. Knock yourself out. Go on.
Yeah, that question there from Dave from Out and Out Gooners podcast is one player from this team that you'd like to have played with.
None of them.
That's a fair answer.
No, I don't mean that in a what I mean by that.
It says more about your old team than this team, right?
Correct. Yeah, I don't think not one of the team that played tonight or in the first 11 would get in any team that I played in. Aubameyang might get on the bench when he was flying, and that's not being biased. That's just who would.
If you're looking at you have to move somebody out in favor of Saka, then there's no way you can do that. I guess I'm talking about as depth on the bench or something like that. So if you just
put it this way,
guys into the dressing room and be on your
this way, as good as Saka is, he's a kid, so he would definitely be on the bench. But he wouldn't get in front of Robert Perez. He wouldn't get in front of Ray Parlour. He wouldn't get in front of Mark Overmars. He would, the list goes on. So as a young player, he would definitely get in the team at some point because he's going to be a superstar. So he would break into the team. But I don't think he would start in a team that I played in.
So we've conceded now, I think, 9 red cards under Arteta, and the next closest team is 3. A handful of those is Luiz. In the teams that you played on, with the voices that you had in that locker room, excuse me, is there a player on this current Arsenal squad that you think is pulling him aside saying, start using your brain? Because I can't see Tony Adams sitting back, or yourself or Nigel being like, this seems acceptable, right? Like there seems like there would be, or even Seaman, it seems like there would just be a new ass being chewed somewhere.
Well, we had to get stuck into Patrick a few times.
I was about to ask. That was
he loved a red card, didn't he? It was like somebody sending off were like, Patrick, you do. As he's walking off, I go, thanks, mate. Yeah, cheers. It's just 10 of us then, yeah? Just this 10. Enjoy your shower. So there would be things said. But the trouble with David is he's a senior player, so there needs to be equally strong senior players around him. He plays like that. It's the way he plays. It's the way he is. I don't think he's going to change. He'll always be. He's not going to get any better as a footballer. He's going to be. That's who he is now. So as good as he's been, you have to take some of the bad stuff with it and say that's just who he is. And until you get someone better than him, then he will play. And as I said, I don't want to be too harsh on him because I think he's been playing really well. So, but it was only the positional sense tonight that let him down. Not the penalty itself was insignificant in that respect. It was just he was out of position in the first place.
Well, we won't see him on Saturday. We will see more than likely we'll see the Gabriel Holding combination, and if they play well on Saturday, my hope is that they're the pair going forward, and Luiz is there for depth rather than the other way around. Last question tonight from Matthew D'Souza. I have a feeling this will be an entertaining answer, but if you were stuck on the proverbial desert island with only one ex-teammate, who would it be?
Dave Seaman. Obviously. Because Dave, I could just send Dave, because we both play golf, both mad golfers, so there'd be plenty of sand to play out the bunkers. And also, I could send Dave off to go and catch my dinner, because all he wanted to do is fish anyway on a desert island. So, sorted.
All right, well, that's an easy answer. So, I want to send a thank you for everybody in the chat. Got a couple of thank you to make, but Drago's in the chat. Don Juan, FC Abrow, Carl Hallberg, Out and Out Gunners podcast. Check them out. I believe they had a certain Owen Young on their podcast recently. Sai, Anvesh, Danny, of course, the GFP. Mike Hers, as always, Rahul, Zen, your names in here. And a lot of people echoing that that the last hour or so has calmed them down quite a bit from being on tilt to being kind of chill again. And I think it certainly isn't any of the three of us bozos that have done that. It's certainly your dulcet tones and perspectives. So also want to send a thank you out to Ben Wiley, a mate of ours who is pretty handy with the artwork, and he's done the kind of the thumbnail for our show tonight and probably will be going forward. So thanks to Ben Wiley at BP Wiley on Twitter. Lee, obviously we know where to find you here in the States. We turn on NBC and if it's the game of the week, it's you. But or Peacock. Peacock. We can hear every so often on the Athletics Arsenal podcast, Handbrake Off. You seem to join that every few weeks with Amy Lawrence, Ian, and Nicholas. We can hear you on FIFA, on ITV. Anything else that you want to
want to plug?
You want to plug to 1 millionth of the people that you talk to on a regular basis?
No, what I really enjoy is just hooking up with Gooners all around the world. So the fact that I get a chance to sit in my little office and chat football stuff. Don't ever think we're imposing.
You're not. I think the last podcast you started in the light and then ended up completely in the dark.
That's right.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Well, it's completely dark here now. So, but yeah, anytime I'm always around for a chat. So whenever you want me on again, I'm more than happy to come on.
Well, it's a pleasure, and just I don't know that every football club has sponsored this way with their ex-players and the club themselves, where this bond between supporters, not just podcasters, but supporters, probably more supporters than podcasters, because we can be annoying at times. But I just don't see ex-players coming on Charlton Athletic podcast. Maybe I'm just not watching Charlton Athletic podcast.
Well, you're not, are you?
I have no idea why I picked them, other than didn't that guy manage them before, Chris Powell?
Chris Powell, yeah.
In any case, the point is you're a gentleman. You've been incredibly helpful with the charity, been incredibly generous with your time. And I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed coming out of that incredibly frustrating game and having a chance to sit with an hour. So thank you.
Anytime you need any therapy, I'm always here.
and by the way, if you ever get a request to go on a podcast from Mike Hers, just remember that he apparently did not know who you were until this podcast. So credibility has gone out the window. That's a joke. Cheers. Thank you so much.
Cheers, thanks, guys.
We play Aston Villa on Saturday. Owen, Andy, anything else to say?
No, just thanks for coming on, Lee. Absolute pleasure to get talking to you.
Anytime,
and thank you for the thank you for the jersey again.
My pleasure.
I told him to do
it. I've got a new